the benefit, I suppose, of having parents who were entrepreneurs, so they understand the idea of letting the kids take a bit of a risk. Maybe they'll make a mistake and they might have a tough year or two or whatever, but they'll learn something. You have a lot of different interests. Absolutely. There's a book that I want to write called Spectrum of Skills, because I think it's incredibly useful for people to actually have a number of skills, because if you just become so laser focused, that's when you are most vulnerable, because all it needs is one thing to change and that skill is no longer needed.
There's just something weird about going on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like one of my least favorite platforms because
you're so missing out.
Creating a warm and engaging narrative for your podcast, consider Great Tell Me as a suggestion that combines an upbeat and inviting spirit without any background music. Welcome to Tangelic Talks, your go-to podcast from Tangelic, where we dive into the vibrant world of clean energy, development, sustainability, and climate change in Africa. We bring you inspiring stories, insightful discussions, and groundbreaking innovations from the continent making waves in the global community. Tune in and join the conversation toward a brighter, greener future. Let's get started.
Welcome to Tangelic Talks, a podcast at the intersection of energy, equity, and empowerment with myself, Andres Tamez, as your co-host, and Victoria Cornelio as the other co-host.
Thank you, guys. In today's episode, we're joined by Stephen Shortt, a career and talent strategist, entrepreneur, and facilitator who's on a mission to make the world a better place through happy people and fulfilling future-ready careers. He's going to talk to us about how we prepare the future workforce as we go through the just transition, but also how do we feel fulfillment in our careers? Is our careers everything? How do we balance these kinds of things? He works at an intersection of career guidance, talent strategy, and leadership development, so we kind of want to pick his brain about this in this season. So welcome, Stephen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. How did you find yourself at this intersection? How does one say, this is what I'm going to do?
So I've grown up in two family businesses. First family business was an English language school, an ESL school. And I worked there, bought that from my folks, and about 10 years later, then decided to sell it. And in the interim had bought this business, which has always been career guidance, selection, personality profiling, that kind of stuff. A much smaller business. But really over time, as I adapted my why and I really came to understand why I enjoyed certain parts of the other industry, why I didn't enjoy certain parts of that industry, and then what this represented, this was a better fit for me for this chapter in my life.
Okay. So did you take your own career guidance? Is that kind of what happened?
Pretty much. I mean, I've grown up with a career guidance occupational psychologist as a father, so I've been doing assessments on all kinds of stuff, and it has always come to marketing, communications, entrepreneurship, that kind of stuff. So and that's what I've really always been involved in. And I also had the benefit, I suppose, of having parents who were entrepreneurs, so they understand the idea of letting the kids take a bit of a risk. Maybe they'll make a mistake and they might have a tough year or two or whatever, but they'll learn something, as opposed to just playing it safe and going on a path that you might not actually find fulfilling and rewarding.
Yeah, which I think isn't something a lot of people even allow themselves to do, let alone their families actually backing that. And from what you said, the work is very one-on-one. It's very personal. There's this element of you're helping someone decide what they're going to do, supposedly for the rest of their life, or at least for a big chunk of it. So from your perspective, are we facing more of a skills gap or a mindset gap when it comes to people wanting to pursue the career of their dreams or the career that they think they should be in?
Mindset, because you can learn all kinds of new skills. Every skill is learnable. I mean, my view is the most important thing that we have as humans that help us to develop and help us to do anything that we want to do in life is curiosity. If we're curious about something, if we're interested in something, we will pursue it. I studied years and years ago. I did basic coding, C++ coding in university, in college. I didn't really like it, but I liked the application stuff and I liked the communication stuff. Middle of last year, I discovered the concept of vibe coding. Now, I don't know how to code, but I know how to communicate. I know how to express myself, and I understand how those components work. And I'm really, really curious about all that. So I've been building little apps here and there and little tweaks to help me in the business or to do new projects. So that curiosity has helped me to develop those new skills, which is ultimately going to help me at some point with the career path. So I think I just had a conversation with a client today. Well, they're not really a client. They're a friend who I do a bit of help with. They're hiring a new person and they're down to 2 people and they're wondering whether they should get somebody with the experience who's maybe not the high energy person, or they should get to somebody with maybe less experience, what seems to be more of an aligned fit. And my bent would always be, you can teach people skills. It's very hard to teach drive.
Yeah. And people's personalities are kind of molded already.
I've been seeing a lot of content pop up, articles pop up about how we're rediscovering the fact that actually people being aligned with you is more important than the skills, because you can teach them that. If you're hiring them, you can usually teach them the thing that you want to hire them for, or it's something that they're specialized in, like accounting, right? But usually when you want someone that fits the culture comes first, right?
From a culture point of view, having like having what you consider to be an A player, somebody who provides, who really hits the results and really brings in the metrics, but is toxic to work with and the antithesis of the culture, that is just a cancer in your organization. And as tough as it is, I mean, as hard as it is to say, okay, Mary is bringing in more sales than anybody else, but by God, she makes this place so horrendous that we can't work with her. Unfortunately, you've just got to do that for the long-term benefit of the organization, but it hurts to make that decision.
Definitely. Yeah, it's a bit of a trade-off, isn't it? When you were talking about the skills and mindset gap and saying that it's a mindset gap mostly, do you think that also applies to the green and clean energy careers and people wanting to transition into these kinds of sectors?
So clean, green, renewables, all this kind of stuff, it's a really interesting area at the moment. There's a lot of growth in it. How much of it is reliable? Like how much of it is greenwashing of companies that are just trying to, we're going to hire 1 or 2 green consultants, but they actually don't fund it. And the people that they're hiring then are actually left with no resources and no way to do it. So that's the area that I would be a little bit concerned about with the renewable energy. I think there's the renewable stuff, solar, wind, B Corp stuff, social responsibility, people who are involved in building communities. It's a real return to being innovative and thinking about things. So I think as a whole area, it's really interesting. But where cynical people get involved, and unfortunately, a lot of times in big businesses, there's a bit of cynicism in me of people who hire a green energy person and then they don't fund them and then they blame, it hasn't returned any results or anything. So, yeah, you've given them $10 a year as a budget to redefine our solar and wind energy power for our 16 plants in Australia. Like, so what are you talking about? So where I do think
they're also like isolated from the data they need, right? Because it's not essential that they have it, but it is essential that they have it for their work. But for the company, they just don't care. Sorry, go ahead.
So that's where I see the biggest issue with this stuff. But actually, people who are interested in developing that, and again, we get to a point where if you're going to find meaning in it, if you have an interest in that part of in the industry or even that area of development, you can build a lot of stuff. There's a lot of opportunities in there. There might be a little bit more fighting with some of those cynics to take that off the ground, to get that off the ground at the beginning. But if it's what you're interested in, it will be worth it for you ultimately in the medium to long term.
Yeah. And because you're talking about fulfillment and sort of, you have the right mindset, you're going to have these challenges. Most of them will be resource challenges. But if you've got the drive, you're going to feel fulfilled. Where is that balance between feeling fulfilled and also the reality of the world? We need to have some stability so we can engage in the wider world around us. Is that a personal choice?
We got mortgages, we got school fees, we got bills, we got everything else. Where I come to this from is 60% of your waking time is spent either at work or thinking about work. Now, your waking time includes commuting. It includes watching TV in the evening. It includes going to the pub with your friends or going out for dinner. It also includes the time spent in the bathroom. It includes time shopping and doing your groceries. So 60% of the time that you are awake, you're thinking about work or you're at work. Mm-hmm. And 50% or 52% of people around the world, on average, are not happy in their work. They're not happy with their job. A recent Gallup's thing had it up at as far as 80 something as I think are just not excited. So I think that it's slightly skewed, but people who are just not happy is more than half. That to me is a horrendous way to spend your life. And it's terrible. But there are certain situations where people make that mental decision to go, well, I got to put food on the table. I hate what I'm doing, but this is what I can do right now. And this is what I've got to do. This is where I can only present stuff to people. It is such a personal decision which way you want to go with it. So having those conversations and whether you are in a position to say, okay, I'm going to step back in my salary range for the next 6 months to go do something completely different and start at a lower grade and go off in that direction. My instinct is always to say, you might have 6 months to 12 months of maybe having a tougher time or not as comfortable a time, but you will then spend the next 10 to 12 years being happier, more fulfilled and more rewarded in an area that you're actually passionate about than spending the next 10 years eking out a living and going, I really hate this and I hate getting up in the mornings and Sundays fill me with dread. So that's my feeling, but I can't speak. There's obviously so many other variables that it's the classic consultant answer. It depends.
Yeah, and it's very personal as well in that regard. When I was reading your bio, you have a book for career changers, and
your next career.
Mm-hmm. Why or when do people sort of do a career change? What are the motivations? What leads people to do that?
So there's a couple of things in our experience. One, I mean, the common one is they've been made redundant, they've been let go, that something has happened and the decision has been made for them that they're no longer gainfully employed. But where we see it an awful lot is people who are getting really burnt out. They really don't enjoy the work. They're feeling a little bit stuck. They don't have the drive. They're just not passionate about what they're doing anymore. And they're looking for other alternatives. They've looked around. The fact is, today, it has never been easier for somebody to make a good living doing something that they enjoy doing. There has never been so many options between, I mean, we're talking about even just in the renewable energy space and all that stuff that did not exist 20 years ago. So it has never been easier to make a living and make money doing something you enjoy doing. But the natural flip side of that is it has never been harder than to figure out what the hell you should be doing because there are so many options. So that's why we built this framework of the ideal career. So if you imagine 3 circles in a kind of a Venn diagram, you've got your abilities, your interest, and the demand. If you have the interest in something, you're really interested in it and you have the ability to do it, but nobody's really going to pay you for it. There's no demand for it right now. That's a hobby.
Right.
If you have the ability to do something, if you have the interest in doing something and there is a demand, so people are paid to do this and you really are interested in it, but you don't have the ability, you don't have the skills to be at the highest level of that, then that's a dream. So for a lot of people, that might be a professional musician or a footballer or something like that. Then where you have the ability to do something and there is a demand, somebody is willing to pay for you, but you really just don't care about it. That is a job.
Right.
Now, it is absolutely possible to move from into the middle of those. So you can develop the skills if you have a dream. You can develop the skills and that can you can have those 3. You might, if you're able to find people who are interested in paying for that hobby can become your career. That's absolutely fine. And if you can start to develop an interest in something that you didn't have an interest in before, you can find an area that's interesting for you. What we want to do is to identify a short list of where those 3 intersect naturally right now for you today, then have a look at those careers. Those are the careers that are your immediate fit of you'd be good at them, you'd enjoy doing them, and people are willing to pay somebody to do these jobs. Then you look at that short list and see the enthusiasm. So what are you most enthusiastic from that short list? And then the L is looking at it through 4 different lenses: lifestyle, leadership, longevity, and learning. What are you interested in doing? And is it a long-term job? Is it something, does it fit your lifestyle? Does it fit? Are you interested in learning more about it? Do you see yourself in a leadership or a team member position? And that's ideal, IDEAL.
Right.
So once you have that, you have a real framework to understand what's your ideal career. How can you figure out what it is that you want to do? Then the other framework that we built is the Happy People Project. Happy is highlights appreciation, progress, people, and your contribution to figure out your life by design. And then moving those 2 things together, that gives you a way of understanding what do you want out of life and which career is going to help you to get there.
That's so cool. I mean, this might be a really dumb question to follow up.
No such thing.
But why are all these frameworks so necessary? Why is it so hard for someone to just sit down and be like, this is my interest and I'm going to upskill and I'm going to work on it?
Because we get target confusion. There's so many different signals. There's so many different things that are coming at us all the time. If you look at your phone and you look at your screen time on your phone and see how many times you've picked up your phone to look at a notification, it stuns me every time. Now I use my phone all the time and I use it for work. I use it for emails, and I also use it for a little bit of social media, a little bit of TikTok every now and again, but all the rest. But the amount of noise that we get, the amount of information that we're getting is an overload is so far and away. I can't remember what it was. Like, I think it's in our great grandparents' time, the amount of information that they used to receive on an annual basis, this generation gets on a daily basis or something like that. It's a magnitude of order of that. So being bombarded with a bucket list on your Instagram, and then somebody talking about the latest side hustle on TikTok, and then somebody else on LinkedIn talking about living your life by this, and you just have to manifest and not actually do anything about it. So we're getting pulled in so many different directions that we don't have the ability, or we don't have the time, we don't give ourselves the time to actually sit down and go, I don't know if I can swear on your podcast, but I won't. What the am I going to do with myself? And figure it out, because we don't know. The other thing, again, I'm a little bit older than you guys, maybe a lot older. You might not like that a little bit. But when I was in school, like I was my career guidance counselor's worst nightmare, because I have an occupational psychology father who is an occupational psychologist. But a lot of teachers, they just, like career guidance teachers and people who are helping, if they've not been in industry or if they've not been researching, they might know 50, 100 different careers that they can kind of guide people into. And it's with the absolute best will in the world. I mean, they have the best interests of these kids.
Yeah.
But they just don't know what the options are, because they haven't had time to do the research, because they're too busy not being properly funded and not being properly supported by schools. One thing I do with parents sometimes, I sit down and go, if we were to sit down for the next 3 hours, how many careers do you think that you'd be able to list? Off the top of your head, what kind of jobs would you be able to list? And people sometimes say, oh, maybe 300, 350. If I like taxi driver, podcaster, cook, all of these things. Mm-hmm. And if we say, okay, how many could you explain? And they go, and they cut it in half. And then I go, what kind of personality and what kind of attributes you need? And people just start to glaze over. They have no idea where to start, other than maybe 2 or 3 careers that they've worked in their life. Our database has 1,275 careers, description of that career and what it takes to do well in that career. So when you do the assessments, we give you a short list of those careers that are highly targeted to your unique mix of interests and abilities. But that's stuff, I mean, you can do it yourself, but like what we do is we shortcut that, but you can do it yourself, but it does take time. You've got to then research that. Even sitting down with an AI, like a ChatGPT, it doesn't have the context to be able to do all of those things and to understand all those nuances of it. There's a huge amount of experience that goes into the back of it. Yeah,
and that lack of headspace to sit with it.
Absolutely.
You know, when I was in high school, there was an assessment that they made us take with the psychologist there, and I remember it making things a lot more confusing than helping. And I was very I just didn't know what to do, you know. And they like you say, there's a lot of good intentions. They try their best, but especially if you're someone who is like who has a range of interest and also a range of like things that you can do. The noise just becomes so loud.
Yeah.
It just becomes impossible to see through it. And then you sort of burn out, right? Because of just the amount of information. And then you get distracted by the noise, which is like the social media pipelines. You mentioned them, like the side hustle thing, this thing, drop shipping. Let's do this. How to make like $10,000 a month. All that sort of stuff. So how is one, obviously they could go to you, right? But if somebody doesn't have access to you, right?
So one of the things as well, and you said this, one of the things that I really picked up on when you were talking about this is like you have a lot of different interests. Absolutely. There's a book that I want to write called Spectrum of Skills, because I think it's incredibly useful for people to actually have a number of skills, because if you just become so laser focused, that's when you are most vulnerable, because all it needs is one thing to change and that skill is no longer needed. So having a range of interests is absolutely useful and an absolute skill. In medieval times, that was called a Renaissance man. So a Renaissance man is basically somebody who had lots of different interests in lots of different areas to do stuff. Renaissance man, patriarchal society. I'm not saying that it's still the case, but it is the Renaissance. But what you if you were sitting down in your high school self and you were looking on, I have a couple of careers in this area and I have a whole area of this I'm interested in, a whole area of this I'm interested in. In theory, you could pick any one of those and just go on that journey for a year or two. Because if you're at a crossroads, or if you're at a woods and in a forest and you have a couple of different paths that are going into the forest and you can't tell which is the one to go through, it doesn't matter which one you pick. Just pick one of them, because when you walk down that path, after a while, you will have a different vantage point. And it might be, okay, I got to turn around and go back and try a different one, or, I can cut across to that one, or, I can move over here. So this is where, when we have all of that, we have so much noise that we can't make a decision. That's where you need to have somebody that can help you. It doesn't have to be a psychologist. It can be somebody who can help you in a coaching capacity or a mentorship capacity, and just go, okay, just move any one step. Anything to make some kind of progress helps you to have a different perspective. The other thing is, people who are in high school now, they're potentially going to have 5 or 6 full careers. Nobody's going to be retiring at 65 anymore. By virtue of the fact that we're all living longer and being healthier, retirement age is going to be irrelevant. So people are going to be working till much later. You're going to have so many different generations working side by side, that people are going to have these portfolio careers that are going to go on and on and on until a much later time. So you don't need a forever career. You need a for now career. What do you want to do now? What do you want to explore now? And then in 10 years time, you might decide, I've kind of done with the consulting bit and the traveling bit that was really fun when I was in my 20s and my 30s. Now I want to settle down. I want to do maybe some podcasting and some thought leadership and some interviewing and some other stuff. And then maybe in a couple of years time, I'll set up the equivalent of an Etsy store and make some kind of a product or something like that. So there's all kinds of ways that we can have a career for 10 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever, and then do something completely different, because it's a different side of our personality that we want to explore.
I think that's very liberating, because there is the pressure of this is forever and I have to choose my career now.
But again, that is old school thinking. That's the way, like when there were only 20 careers to choose from, that's what you had to do.
Yeah,
now,
the options were very limited.
Yeah.
I guess I want to apply that into that just transition thing, because a lot of people who probably started with the more traditionalist careers, right, might be looking into moving, but they say, I don't have the skills, I don't have this, I don't have that. There's often this thinking that only engineers or scientists can work in the green sector or in clean energy, all these things. What kind of roles do you think are most underestimated or overlooked in this space?
Firmly believe that 80% of people can do 80% of the jobs that are out there. It's a matter of interest. It's a matter of whether you actually are interested in developing it and developing yourself. Okay, maybe brain surgeon. Yeah, I kind of want my brain surgeon to have done quite a bit of training and to have a lot of people looking at his dexterity. And maybe for some very specific engineering stuff. So maybe when it gets to the real technical stuff in solar panels or something like that to be able to understand how that works. But if you're able to deal with people, you can go to any industry. If you're interested in, if you can do project management, if you can do basic maintenance and basic administration of stuff, you can learn how to do the specifics of that. If you are interested in that area, if it's something that is something you're passionate about. The other thing about passion, this is a really interesting thing. People talk about being passionate about your career and being passionate about this. Passion doesn't mean interest. Passion actually means, what are you willing to, no. Passion actually means, what are you willing to sacrifice to make sure that that happens? So being really interested in a career, it has come to mean, passion has come to mean, oh, I'm passionate about this. But that just means I'm interested in it. Actually, if you're passionate about it, it means that you are willing to give up all kinds of stuff in order to make that happen. So people being passionate about their careers is a little bit of an overstatement. So you can have a really keen interest and a really strong interest in something, be really, really fascinated with it and want to learn as much as you can about it. But then once you've done everything, once you've explored everything you can, you go, actually, yeah, I want to go do something else now. And it's not that I've lost that passion. I'm still interested in it, but I'm interested in this now as well, because that's what human beings do.
Interesting. So, for example, with that earlier example that you gave about you hire a green consultant, but you don't give them the resources, if they're passionate about this kind of work, they would take the hit and they would sacrifice, for example, a salary or this and that for the work that they want to do? Or how does it look different in the workplace?
So I on that example, it's not necessarily about passion. It's about if that person has the ability. I mean, you can have somebody who's in that scenario, whether they be giving, I wouldn't be recommending that people be giving up a salary just to do something that especially in a corporate world, that they give up a salary just to do something with green energy. If you're not going to be able to convince people by not taking a salary, they're just going to take advantage of you. If a big company, corporate, is not willing to pay you a salary to do something that's senior, I would be saying that's a bit of a red flag for me. But if you really believe in, this is the green initiatives that we want to build out into the companies, and I'm willing to take a bit of flack, and I'm willing to really push through some people's maybe I don't want to say ignorance, but lack of education in that world or that area. And it's going to be painful for me to get some of these older people to buy into this idea that maybe we shouldn't be spewing lots of oil over penguins. I don't know. But there's areas that you might say, I'm willing to really push through and have these personal difficult situations and conversations because this is something I really believe in, but I'm doing it for the betterment of the organization. So I'm expecting to be paid for it.
That makes sense. And then from that flip side, as an organization, you've got a worker that is bringing you ideas, that is trying to, for example, transform this new department that you've made because ESGs are now a thing and they're sort of leading that. Do you see organizations making a mistake when they focus heavily on technology and funding and their own financial stability rather than on their people and sort of training their people and giving them the resources that they need? Or are they two completely separate things?
I don't know that they're mutually exclusive. I think one of the things that is a natural byproduct. So in the organization, it depends on the culture of the company, what they're predisposed to actually rewarding. And in a lot of companies, once you get to a certain size and you're optimizing, you're really rewarding for risk avoidance and risk mitigation. So bringing in new things is risky. It's an unknown, and you have people that are used to spending their time and they're incentivized for minimizing risk, maximizing profit. So trying these things. So really what they could be looking at trying to get those initiatives at ESGs in is actually saying, well, this is going to give us more attention. This is going to get us more market share so putting it in terms of what the company is actually interested in, even if their stated goals are, we want to be a green leader in whatever, what they're actually incentivized from the top down is minimizing risk and creating new organizations or new departments within an organization. It's risky because that's just the way it is. So understanding what the culture is actually rewarding, that's the best way for me about going to understand how they can push those things through.
I have a question. It's sort of, as someone who's currently doing freelance and it sometimes looks into full-time employment. How do you navigate hiring, like the hirers, or there's just something weird about going on LinkedIn? LinkedIn is like one of my least favorite platforms because
You're
so,
missing out.
it's vapid, but it's like going on there and you see like the moment I look at like, it's like, we want you to have the strong loyalty to the company, and we want you to go above and beyond. And it's like, it's not a problem. I have no problem going above and beyond. What I have a problem with is this. There's a vibe there. There's like there's something here, and there's hiring speak. I don't know how to explain it, but I can see that you know what I'm talking about.
Oh no, I know exactly what you're talking about. And again, I don't want to swear on your podcast. But it is a lot of the time. So we train people in how to hire the right people. So one of the, and again, I love my framework. So we've built some frameworks around this to help companies, because you see these job descriptions that are so generic that you're like, do you actually want a human to apply to this? Like, this is like, it means nothing. And then they run them through 5 rounds of interviews to find the right person. It's like, how can you possibly find the right person? So a lot of the time, and we do this with clients, like we actually have a call with them beforehand. We go, okay, your job spec, you want somebody who is a team player and able to work on their own. 2 ends of the same spectrum. So you want the schizophrenic, or you want somebody who is very creative and very detail orientated. Generally, not the same thing. So this is one of the things when people are hiring, a lot of the time they don't actually know because they haven't spent the time. It's not that they want a unicorn; it's they actually don't know what they want. They want a thing fixed, and they think, okay, I just need that one person to fix it. And again, that's not feasible. So they're not clear on what the role is. So we have spec the role and then calibrate talent. So specing the role, the skills, the personality, the experience, and the culture. Like, what is it that you're actually looking for? We've had people where we've gone into a job, we've gone in to do a selection for people, and we said, okay, well, what do you want this person to be like? And they were hiring like a COO. I said, okay, well, what do you want? Like, what's the culture like? What's the organization like? What do you want them to be doing? What are their responsibilities in your organization? Like, oh, we don't know. We'll see who comes in and we'll see who's the best fit. Like, yeah, it ain't gonna work.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So I had a really, really good friend of mine who just moved home to the States. He was living in America. He was living in Europe for a while, and he was trying to find somebody to help him to build his business. It was a very values-based organization, a values-based training. A wonderful guy. And we were looking at his job spec because he was getting like people that just weren't a fit. They were applying to increase the CV to become consultants and all the rest of it. And then we rewrote it and we put the values right up front. It's like, this is what we're doing. This is what we're looking for. This is what we believe. This is how this is what we're trying to build. And he had 2 people that I contacted him. One of them, who ended up being his partner on it, took something like a 60% pay cut from a massive corporate business in America. And just because she read the ad, she was like, yeah, this is what I want to be doing. She was still getting good money. Like, he wasn't looking for an intern, but she was able to really feel fulfilled. She'd done what she wanted to do. And then, so that kind of thing, companies a lot of the time don't actually know what they're looking for. So they use this vague jargon to make it look like they've thought about it. But then when you dig into it, it's a nonsense.
We're looking for excellence. Okay, cool.
Who isn't? Who's looking for a mediocre manager?
Yeah, you have to define these things in context.
Absolutely. Actually, there's a big one. So we want somebody who's ambitious. Okay, define what ambitious means for you, because ambitious could be leading a team of people into something unknown, or ambitious could be, I'm going to stab everyone in the back to get ahead. So there's 2 different, like, you really got to define what these things mean, and then you can start looking for people.
I've seen situations where, like, we want someone ambitious, and then they put them in a situation where there's literally no growth potential.
No,
So
just
it's
follow the
like,
playbook.
what's their ambition supposed to go?
Yeah. And I guess that goes back to what you're saying about the value slide, right? Ambition within this company in this value framework means this, right? Thank you for the coaching, Stephen. That was awesome. It's very reaffirming for me because I love what I do. But we're going to stay on for a couple more minutes to get some more practical advices, talk about the green workforce. You can find all of this on the blog at tangeliclife.org. Make sure to check out Stephen. All his stuff will also be linked. You can get his books as well if you're looking into career changes or just finding your career. And thank you so much, Stephen, for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk power, let's talk change. From rural lights to brighter days. Equity rising, voices strong. We're building tomorrow where we all belong. Tangelic Talks, energy, equity, pride. Empowering the world, side by side. A spark becomes a fire, a vision that's true. Together we rise, it starts with you.